Guys, our friends at Ridge have done it again. After creating the world's greatest wallet, they have now launched the Ridge key case. You no longer have to be bulked down by your old jangling keychain. You got to try it out for yourself. Click on the link in the description below. Use the promo code Chael. That's going to get you 10% off. And look how good it goes with my Ridge wallet. The Ridge key case secures between 2 and 6 keys. It organizes your keys in a compact silhouette and folds out for easy access. There are 6 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and my favorite, burnt titanium. The Ridge team is so confident that you like it, they're going to let you test drive it for 45 days. If you don't love it, send it back, get a full refund. Go to ridge.com/Chael to save 10% today, or just click on the link below. Guys, I got a phone call. I got a phone call over the weekend from a buddy of mine named Drew Roberts, and he just simply asked me one question. Drew's known Colby Covington since he was about 8 years old, so he asked me a question: is Kamaru Usman good for Colby? Now, Dana White went to the press conference right after the fight. I got a link off of MMA Junkie, and it said Dana White weighs in on the future of Usman versus Edwards. So I assumed in the link that I was listening to that Dana talked about, is he going to immediate rematch them? I listened to the whole clip. It was 18 minutes and 27 seconds. I never heard it. If it was in there, I don't know. And I'm only prefacing this with this because if you guys get this and go, Chael, what are you talking about? Dana said that he's going to rematch him. Okay, but you're telling me something. That would be very unlike Dana to go to a press conference and say, I'm going to do an immediate rematch. It would be very unlike him, not unheard of. But to give you an example, the last time that immediately after a fight that Dana White went to a press conference and said, I'm rematching them, without talking to the athletes, the managers, sitting down, finding out from the doctors on the commission's side of it, where the injury was in the reports. The last time he did that was Moreno versus Figueiredo, part 1. And the time he did it before that, I can't even remember. I truly can't remember. It's a very rare thing. So even though the headline said that they talked about it, I listened to the clip, I didn't hear it because I don't think he did it. But that's what I'm operating as I speak to you now. I'm operating on the knowledge that he didn't do it. And it is very relevant because when this young man asked me if it's going to affect Colby, that's a really tough question. I mean, in many ways, right, and I'm stating the obvious for you, but Colby Covington is the clearest number 1 contender we have in the sport, not just at 170 pounds. There is nobody in any division with a stronger and more obvious separation from the field than Colby, but he can't fight for a title. I mean, that almost sounds like a riddle. It's not. If you know the backstory, he's already had the opportunity twice, and here we are. So, removing Kamaru Usman, in theory, would be wonderful news. But if Dana's just going to rematch them, not a whole lot changes. First off, it ties everybody up for a meaningful period of time. And second, Kamaru versus Edwards was not all that competitive. And as time goes by, and here we are, guys, 3 days, your minds might already be telling you something different. Your lying eyes might have already convinced you that that was a real back and forth battle. It wasn't. And before you even think you can go further and go, well, Chael, Edwards did win a round. It's been a long time since everybody won. I'm not looking to put Edwards down. I'm not looking to do that at all. I'm sharing for you. It wasn't even a round that Edwards won. It was up position. He stepped in with an outside trip, which should absolutely never work. It did work, and he falls into a full mount. I'm not taking away from Edwards. That's not at all my message here. I'm just sharing for you, if those two are to rematch, based on what we just saw, it would lead you to believe that perhaps Kamaru is going to get his belt back, thus putting Colby in the exact same position. Long way of getting there, but it really does matter what they do next. What Edwards' next defense is. Is it with Kamaru? I would imagine Kamaru Usman is wildly hungry right now and can think of nothing else than getting back in there with Edwards. I would imagine today. But I haven't heard that from Usman, and neither have you. 1 week ago, he was interested in going to 205 pounds. 2 months before that, he was interested in boxing Canelo. I'm not suggesting for you those things are going to happen. I'm suggesting for you that Usman is in a unique spot. That while it may be obvious to all of us that he's just going to come back and go get that belt back and he can't think of anything else, why that might appear obvious to us, that is a gentleman with a different mind. Right? Kamaru Usman has a rare level of success. You hear the difference? There's a fine line of genius and insanity. He is a genius. He is a master within his craft. If I could bet money, of course I would bet that he wants the immediate rematch. I'll tell you something else that happened at that press conference. Somebody came up and handed Dana his phone. Dana doesn't bring his phone to press conferences, right? Dana White's phone, I'm sure you can imagine. It's buzzing nonstop. So it's a level of discipline. Somebody else holds onto that phone, but that somebody walked into the press conference and sat the phone down in front of Dana. Dana looked down, something was said. We couldn't quite hear it. So I called John Morgan. I just said, hey, what was that? And John said, I don't know. He said, but I think, right, John was right there. I think it was a FaceTime, and I think it was Kamaru Usman. That would be very helpful. I mean, if Kamaru Usman was somewhere and he could not wait, he couldn't wait until Monday morning. He couldn't wait to get home. He couldn't have to talk to his manager, leverage, come to you guys, position, and try to get that fight. He couldn't wait. He had to FaceTime that, right? He wanted to see him face to face. He could have sent a text. I mean, it's a big deal. It really is. Somebody ever gives you an apology, accept it. Appreciate it. Somebody ever a handwritten apology, it's a whole nother level, right? It's a whole nother level of gesture. If Kamaru Usman wanted to see Dana White face-to-face to the point, even if he used technology to do it, it's a powerful message. And if we were all to just assume, as we are, that Kamaru Usman wants that one back, okay, great, but now it's on Dana. Is Dana going to just go ahead and book it? Kamaru would have a stronger argument than anybody. Of course, the guy who loses the belt automatically comes in with the strongest argument to be the number one contender for his own belt. Of course, but we don't always see it go that way. I'll just bring you a real recent example is Glover versus Yuri. We were told that fight was done. Either way, 7 weeks had gone by before we were even told that. Speaking of the press conference that I watched all roughly 19 minutes of, that came up. And Dana revealed to us it looks like that's the fight, but he also revealed that it's not done. And it just makes you wonder why. Yuri's accepted it. Glover's called for it. What do you mean it's not done? In terms of we just haven't had time, it's just simply a logistics and a manpower issue, and we just haven't got it done and sent out and gotten it back, or somebody's holding it up. I would be curious. I like the drama of it. I'm curious on it right now between Jones and Stipe, even if that fight comes along, why it took so long? Why it took so long? Who was holding it up? What do you do at 170? And I'm not asking you the right thing. We can't always do the right thing. Colby Covington being the number one contender and not getting in that right, we can't always do the right thing. Sometimes we have to observe other things. We have to just observe parity. We want to talk about what Kamaru wants to do or what you want him to do. There's another person here whose opinion matters. His name is Leon. Now, I can't imagine that Leon is going to come out and deny somebody an opportunity, particularly somebody that just gave it to him, particularly the way that that fight went. But there's still gamesmanship. Sometimes you don't want to do something. You come out and say, no, that's not a good answer. You go sit down with some creative people. You come up with one hell of a story, and all of a sudden he convinces you to want to see something different. I'm sharing for you. I don't think that Leon has those capabilities and or mindset. I'm just sharing with you. Nothing's done until it's done. And I do think the 170-pounders who have all sat here quietly and they're standing back because they're assuming it's going to be Leon versus Kamaru. And I got to tell you, it's going to be Leon versus Kamaru if they all keep that assumption, if they don't speak up, if they don't come forward right now. George Masvidal is likely and realistic, not in a position to step in there for a world title fight, but George Masvidal also did everything right, and he set the table. He set this over a week ago. He hedged his bet on the shot that Leon was going to win this, and he started to position himself. My message to you isn't about whether George goes out there and gets it or not. My message is about position. My message is about strategy. My message is about trying. We come back to Glover and Yuri. Glover's going to get the shot against Yuri because Jan didn't take it. Because Uncle Liev didn't take it. If nobody shows up for the interview, it's your job. It's the way that it goes. And at 170, I think that there's a lot of stories to tell. And regardless of what we want, or regardless of what that FaceTime was, or regardless of what Kamaru wants, you still now need to show respect and speak to somebody else, which is Leon. We can guess that Leon isn't going to turn down an opportunity. That sounds right to me. I'm strong with that guess. But there's also a creative and a strategic angle that if Leon and his team have, they would be working on right now. We'll see what happens. I'm not ready to admit that it's going to happen. I watched the clip, regardless of what the headline says. I never heard Dana say it's going to happen. If I'm wrong, if I missed something, correct me.